To me, the most interesting guy, 11 through 20 here, is Brock Purdy, in a way where I feel like Purdy's in a weird spot in his career where, so he finished as QB6 in fantasy last year. He's minus 250 to win MVP with 2 weeks left in the season, much to my chagrin, before his 0 out of 10 performance on Christmas against Baltimore. And then in the playoffs, he is merely solid. Like, I don't think anyone came out of that playoff run being like, oh, Brock Purdy isn't the guy. He also wasn't amazing. And so now he's just in this weird spot where I don't think there's any reason why he should be worse this coming season, given that, he did deal with, one, his own injuries. It seemed like he played 2 games effectively concussed against Minnesota and Cincinnati. Debo missed some time, but McCaffrey was healthy. Ayuk was healthy. Don't know exactly what the wide receiver room is going to be. Like, are all these guys is it just going to be Ayuk, Debo, and Ricky Pearsall?
Pearsall will help in some capacity.
So, yeah. I mean, he's a strange guy to think about. You always just wonder, like, is he just going to turn into a pumpkin at a given moment, Brock Purdy? Like, he was the MVP favorite and minus 250, and at one point, people are like in the middle of the season, like, oh, should Sam Darnold come in for Purdy after he had the games against Minnesota and Cincinnati?
If everything about Brock Purdy was exactly the same, but he'd been drafted at the end of the first round instead of as Mr. Irrelevant, no one's having these conversations. No,
people just look at him as though he's Dak Prescott, basically, where you know that he's not quite Mahomes, Allen level, but you know that he's still a top 10 guy.
He was the 6th best quarterback in fantasy last year, 8 different games with 20 or more fantasy points as well. Led all quarterbacks in yards per pass attempt, and at least as we sit here today, every single weapon that he had last year is back. So, I mean, you mentioned Debo, you mentioned Ayuk, George Kittle is back, as is Chris McCaffrey. It's still one of the best offensive lines in football. They add Ricky Pearsall. Juwan Jennings, which everyone's just like, whatever, but Juwan Jennings was balling out in the Super Bowl.
Right. He's going to win Super Bowl MVP.
Right. I mean, he should have been, right? He had a shot at it. So my point is like, they're loaded again. Now, can Purdy stay healthy, obviously, because he had the bad injury in the NFC Championship 2 years ago. Can Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and all those guys and McCaffrey, it's one of the older teams in the NFL, and they stayed really healthy last year, so can they stay healthy? But you've got one of the best offensive play callers in the NFL calling his plays. It's another year in that system. He's surrounded by as much talent as any quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't run that much, but he's also not a nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
he should run more.
He should run more, but like he'll get you 10 to 15, maybe 20 yards in a game, and so you get an extra point or two here as well. So he comes in at 12 for me, but again, he was QB6 last year. Purdy again, that's one of those guys that, like, if we look up a year from now and Purdy was once again a top 6 fantasy quarterback, top 8 fantasy quarterback, no one's going to be shocked. And it was hard for me to get him inside my top 10. So it's just another example of just how deep the quarterback position is this year in fantasy. And I think the margins between those guys are razor thin. Like, we're all wowed by C.J. Stroud. Like, I love C.J. Stroud, right? But at the end of the day, do we think C.J. Stroud's numbers are definitely going to be significantly better than Brock Purdy's a year from now?
So guaranteed.
Like, I mean, like, they're both well coached with a lot of weapons around them. Again, I get it. C.J. Stroud is all flashy and everything like that, but at the end of the day, Purdy shows up with numbers.
Yep. I think Stroud is the better, more talented quarterback,
of course.
But Purdy has the better offensive. I'm taking Kyle Shanahan over everyone else in the league on the play caller front, and then he's probably still got the best weapons, even though Houston have upgraded. The one thing I'll say about Purdy, someone who was watching every single snap he took because of my MVP ticket on him, he didn't have to play a number of great defenses last year, and when he did, it didn't look great. Against Baltimore and Cleveland, those are the 2 games he really struggled. He can't play in the rain. That seems like a real thing now. He was dreadful against Cleveland in the rain. He was pretty bad against the Packers in the rain too, and he was largely kept out of the conditions. So those would be the 2 things with Purdy I'd be a little bit concerned about.
And it's why last year's QB6 is at number 12.
Yeah.
And it's why I do have C.J. Stroud at QB5. Like, I agree with everything you just said, but I'm just saying it's not a crazy statement to be like, oh, you know what? Like, a year from now, if we said, wow, Brock Purdy ended up putting up better numbers than C.J. Stroud last year, I don't think any of us would be like, whoa, where did that come from? That's crazy. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.